Summertime in northern Michigan means the pure Michigan Bayview to Mackinac Sailboat Race. And I reported earlier that Bo Guest, the 80-footer from Hong Kong, crossed the finish line first near Mission Point there at 6:07 p.m. on Sunday, the first of 205 boats in the traditional 86th race. George Zimmerman from Travel, Michigan, I'm told, is or was on board one of those boats, and he's on the other end of our line bright and early this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike Patrick.
Well, it sounds very calm where you are. You can't still be on a boat, can you?
No, it is very common. I'm not on a boat, and I'm happy about that. We've crossed the finish line on Runaway about 2 in the morning this morning, so about the time you get up.
That's about right. That's a pretty good time, isn't it? That's, if I'm not mistaken, faster than the last time you were on board one of these boats.
Much faster. The boat I was on, this Runaway, is a 70-footer, so a much bigger boat than the boat I sailed last year, and therefore much quicker. And I think we were about the 5th boat to finish the race, and there's like 200 more boats to go today. But, yeah, it was a very quick ride. We did 254 miles in about 36 hours, and if I wasn't so sleepy, I would figure out what the math there and, how many miles per hour that is. But
oh, no. That's too confusing also to, when you look at the adjusted time or the corrected time and the real time and all that sort of, it's just nice to know you made it safe and sound and in one piece. Take us back, if you would, before we talk more about the finish, to the start of the race. How did it all go? What was it like to be on board? And then just give the whole story, the conditions and anything interesting that happened along the way.
Absolutely. Well, it was a beautiful race, and we had about 200, like you say, 205 boats that started on Saturday afternoon, late morning and early afternoon Saturday.
Yep.
I think there were about 15 different starting times, depending on what class you were in. Runaway being a 70-footer and one of the faster boats, we were one of the last to start, so we started at 1:50 p.m. on Saturday. The conditions when we started were good, and we got off to a decent start. We did have a little squall, a little rain and wind, right after the start. But then once that kind of cleared off, nice, fairly strong wind Saturday afternoon, and it was really a downwind start for that first leg. And so all the boats had their big spinnakers up and were doing their fastest speeds. And I have to tell you, the boat I was on, we, with our big spinnaker up and a really strong wind behind us, we actually got that boat to get up and plane that is the whole kind of left, its usual sitting place in the water, and jumped up kind of on top of the water.
Yeah.
And we were doing 22 knots Saturday afternoon, which, it may not sound like a lot compared to, a race car or even driving a car, but I'll tell you, on water under sail, that's like, a bullet train. And so it was just amazingly fun. And then, but we had, throughout the race, we had all kinds of conditions. We had rain, we had storms, we had calm periods where we were barely moving. I think we had like 4 different times where we looked at the knot meter, the gauge that tells you how fast your boat speed is, and there were 3 zeros there. And we're going, well, that's not good.
Some people might think it's cute. There's a little sailboat race to Mackinac Island. But not only can it be dangerous, you guys work awfully hard on board.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that sometimes people's mental image of sailboat racing might be, kind of an afternoon jaunt, out on the lake. But in this case, since the distances are so great, I mean, the short course was 204 miles. The long course, the one that we sailed, was 254 miles. Mm-hmm. And you're basically sailing and working around the clock because obviously there's no, and again, I think some people might think, well, you pull into port, for the evening and have a nice dinner at a restaurant. Well, no, not like that.
Well,
obviously we're working around the clock. We had 16 people on the crew of this boat, and so we worked in shifts, and it was basically 4 hours on, 2 hours off.
And
so your long break time was 2 hours.
And in your break time, your 2 hours off, it's not like you're going to go down and have a sleep in a luxurious bed. I mean, how did you spend your 2 hours off?
Well, usually it was like grab a bite of something to eat from the galley, something simple like a sandwich or whatever. And then there were these berths, these kind of cots that were built into the side of the boat down below. And you just kind of would crash there for an hour and a half, try to get some sleep. And that's sort of something I learned from last year is, sleep management. That is, when you have that chance to grab an hour of sleep, take it, because you're going to need it. So I think that's, but, it's a lot of fun. And, of course, the scenery, I mean, on the lake was beautiful. not just with the sailboats, but just the lake itself, and just a gorgeous sunrise yesterday morning, over the lake. So it's beautiful, but it's also hard work.
I'll bet you when you lay down for that hour and a half of sleep, it probably goes by and it feels like 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then, an hour and a half later, somebody's kind of rustling your berth saying, you're wanted on deck.
Yeah.
So get up there.
And you get up there probably in a daze, half asleep, and you guys are...
Well, you do the best you can, but it's all very compressed. And again, this boat, because it's a larger boat, and the larger ones tend to be the faster ones, you're clipping right along, too. And safety, you mentioned, danger. Safety is a big issue, and we had man overboard drills, and, you had to wear certain equipment at night, or if it was really rough as far as, flotation devices and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We actually used a buddy system on our boat where you were assigned a buddy to kind of make sure that you both knew where each other were. So that everybody was accounted for in the boat because we had so many people. So, it's fun, but it's also, like I say, it's hard work.
What are the mosquitoes like on the water in the middle of the night like that?
At 10 knots, they really don't bother you. You're moving too fast for them.
Okay. And do you know where you stand in the race while you're out there?
We really didn't. I mean, I think some of the boats, one of the things people can do today, in fact, is go to Michigan.org, our website, mm-hmm. and track the rest of the fleet as they come in, and most of the boats will arrive today because we've got this GPS tracking where each boat has a transponder and beams it up to a satellite, and you can watch. Our boat was not equipped with internet access. We didn't have any Wi-Fi in our boat, so we really couldn't dial in and see where we were.
Okay. But you had an idea you were doing pretty good. Did you finish ahead of Doug DeVos and WindQuest, one of the most famous boats in the race?
I don't know the answer to that because I have to tell you that when we arrived, we crossed around 2 o'clock in the morning this morning. It took a while to get the boat, tied up at the slip there at the marina. And as soon as we were kind of done with that, we all kind of went and got some sleep. So I haven't spent a lot of time on the standings yet this morning.
WindQuest was about 50 miles behind Beau Guest, this superstar boat, the 80-footer from Hong Kong that swept in here and finished first overall. I guess that wasn't a surprise. That boat was expected to finish first, and it did.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what they do is that since a large percentage of the boats are not identical to each other, so you don't have the exact same, design, the same sails, the same dimensions. In that case, there are these complex formulas where you give a rating to a boat, and then you adjust the time of the boats in your class based on that rating. Either you have to give them time or they have to give you time, et cetera. And so Beau Guest obviously had the highest rating or the lowest rating, depending on how you look at it, in that they were expected to be the fastest boat in the fleet. But the question was, were they fast enough to win their class? And that's something I haven't even looked at yet.
So when you came across the line, you said at 2 o'clock in the morning, were there people still ready to celebrate at the Pink Pony, or will that be left for today?
Well, in fact, some of the boats that finished a little bit ahead of us got in before last call, and so they had obviously been to the Pony. But because many of them were back on their boats after closing time at the local watering hole, if we will, the Pink Pony. But yeah, there were some people who were already, were still up, and people were still getting their gear off boats and that kind of thing. Obviously, we were too late to do any of that, but it was a great scene. I got to tell you, the skipper of our boat, Bruce Burton, who's a fabulous guy and the Commodore of the Bayview Yacht Club. I was part of his crew. He allowed me to sail over the finish line. I sailed like the last 3 miles of the race.
All right.
I'm telling you, at 2 in the morning, we were doing 10 knots. Heeled over pretty good. I mean, we had a nice, probably 8 or 9 knot breeze we were sailing in. It was a fun finish.
Wow. Well, that's fun. So today's the big day. We're going to go live to the Pink Pony a little bit later, find out how it's going this morning, and wait for the pickle boat, the last place boat, to come across the line, and everyone will keep celebrating. And, well, sorry to get you up so early after a long night like that, but we were eager to hear the news and glad you had a nice ride.
Thanks, Michael Patrick. It was a lot of fun, and thanks for doing this.
All the best to George Zimmerman. It's the Travel Michigan Bayview to Mackinac Race, a summer tradition in Michigan. And if you can get to Mackinac Island today and tonight, it's still a lot of fun, and it's not too late to get there. And speaking of